Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What. Today we've got Joshua on and he's the CEO of Bulla, which is a student micro-influencing agency. Hi Joshua.
Hi Daniel, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. Excited to have you on. I absolutely love what you're doing with the micro-influencing business. So let's jump straight in. And do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Josh. I'm the founder of Bulico. The best way to describe us is we're a student marketing agency, and we focus on using students as the micro-influencer to magnify a brand within the ever-changing student market. We have our own software, which we have the students saved on, and then we match them with the best brands to offer an unrivaled level of engagement and affinity. But essentially, we pay students to share Instagram stories, to promote brands and highlight the product they have on offer.
I mean, that's a brilliant idea. Where did this all come from?
I mean, it actually started over lockdown. I was originally a club promoter, so I've been working with, or I still am actually, I've been working within the student market for a while, and we actually just used to get students sharing Instagram stories for our events.
Yeah.
And obviously, it got traction within that market, and it's a very targeted way to share a brand. So then I started seeing how the influencer model was ever growing. But I mean, you're paying all these celebrities as you would, thousands of pounds, and you can't really target their demographic because their audience is all over the shop. You can have I don't know, say you've got one of the main Chelsea people, they'll have youngsters to the older generation.
Yeah.
But for us, for brands in particular, we can help them reach that niche, which is the student market. Because again, as I went to Brooks, majority of my following is from Oxford Brooks, and they're my age bracket. So, yeah.
So you basically took an idea that came around what you're doing and promoting for clubs, and you took it and you built a business out of it during COVID. I mean, that's really cool.
Well, we're trying to build a business. It's only we've only been operational for a pretty short period of time, but we're excelling. We're growing quite rapidly, which is very exciting.
Okay, so you had this idea. How did you go about actually getting it off the ground?
Well, I mean, it was during the lockdown, so there was no real events going on. So luckily, you could say luckily, I had quite a lot of time on my hands, and I had to put it to good use. So I guess it just starts with the original idea is thinking of a name. And I guess that took the longest part to think of.
Mm.
So yeah, but I mean, it means bubble in Latin. And
Okay,
obviously,
cool.
during the time of COVID, everyone's going on about being a bubble. So I thought we can just target each city as its own bubble, and we can connect them with a brand with the bubble, which is the city.
So are your influencers, when you say micro, they are almost like an influencer within their bubble. They don't particularly have like a worldwide following, but maybe at specific universities, they are an influencer for their peers.
Yeah, they're an influencer in their own right, because I mean, say you share something, your friends are going to see that, and so you influence your friends when you share that. So it really allows us to break down even particularly year groups from per university, and we actually have the access to see. We ask them what sport team or what they're studying, so it allows us to really break down per person at per uni.
Wow. So it's really targeted. And not many platforms can do that within the influencer world, right?
No, not many. I mean, you have the classic bigger companies which are focusing on influencing, and they're obviously excelling. So it's trying to use that within the student market because they're doing something right.
So, you've built this company, or you're trying to build this company. What do you look for as a founder in somebody that wants to work within this kind of marketing industry?
Well, we're actually hiring, or we're in the hiring process at this current moment for 4 job roles. So
Wow.
it's quite relevant. In all honesty, I mean, a CV is great because you want to kind of get to know the person. But I've been just calling every single person who, from their CV, jumps out, and then seeing what they're like on the phone. Obviously, you can really gauge from what someone's like on the initial conversation. And as it's a fast, rapid growing company, we need someone who can keep up with it at this moment in time and keep up with the constant changes, because they're going to be working with various brands, dealing with various amounts of students. So you need to be ready to think on your feet.
Mm. And what kind of skill sets are you looking for at the moment?
Again, it's going back. If you're very sociable, it helps a lot. For the current roles we're looking at, because we're currently looking for marketing and account managers. So day-to-day life is going to be dealing with a lot of students and talking with brands as well.
How do you sort of gauge the amount of money, I suppose, a influencer should get? Like, is there a sort of a formula that's created to say they're getting X amount of traction for this particular product, therefore they should earn this amount? How is that worked out and broken down?
Well, no. So we actually we pay each influencer per campaign the same, because they're all typically we only use 1,000 to 10,000 following, and the lower the audience or the lower your audience size, typically you're going to have a higher engagement rate, because it's going to be more, your audience is going to be actual friends of yours, and they're going to want to engage with your content a lot higher compared to, say, if you have 10,000.
Okay, that's interesting. So what does an average day look like for you at the moment, building a hot business?
Well, it's very hard to kind of summarize, I guess, an average day. Initially, it was me sat in my family home kitchen trying to build up Bulico, and then that's going from organization of the business to onboarding students, trying to bring on clients, setting up, managing, and then reporting on the campaigns. I actually made my life a lot easier when I made the decision to take the first employee, and that was a guy called Ewan. I think he'd be a bit upset if I said it wasn't the best decision I've made to date. And then that allowed me to kind of hand over, I guess, day-to-day managing of campaigns, and for myself to focus on the growth. And that's where we're in the fortunate position that we can look at expanding our team even further.
Wow. So
what are some of the biggest things you've learned, maybe one about yourself and about running a business, having set up your own company?
I mean, I used to be I didn't really necessarily want to get people in too early, because obviously it's a high expenditure, but you can't do everything. And it actually, you learn from having other people. Even just having you in initially, it's allowed us to bounce ideas a lot off each other. And there's no silly idea, as you constantly change, everything's changing. So you've got to kind of work alongside people to keep up with that change.
If somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, oh, I'd like to get into the influencer world, maybe work within some company like yourself, the influencer agency kind of model, what would they be able to put on their CV for you to go, oh, actually, yeah, no, I'd really like this person to come work for me?
What really kind of screamed out when people did have CVs is when they were highlighting they were part of a team. So I guess that can be from a society to a sport team. It doesn't necessarily have to be a role within that team, but just showing that they were doing stuff as a team already. Particularly for our industry, we're looking for people who can work. We're going to be a really close-knitted team. And if you can bring that to the table, that's a really big contender for us.
Going through the process of starting your own business, what are some of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome?
There's been no regrets, but I guess in hindsight, getting a bit too running before you can walk in some campaigns. There's been a few opportunities to take on some campaigns, and as a CEO, when you see some big figures put in front of you, you're very inclined to jump on them. But in reality, you actually can't facilitate. We can't facilitate that. So we actually learned from that, and we went to go take one. And I decided actually we can't do this, and we've actually proposed a smaller offering, and the brand was actually very happy, and they enjoyed our honesty, because we could have just said yes, we'd love to jump into this with you today, but we actually turned around and said no, we actually can't facilitate that, and we see a benefit in maintaining a relationship with the brand. We don't just want a quick in and out. We want to keep that client for as long as possible.
I think this is really interesting from other potential founders' point of views, how did you start approaching clients and brands? How do you know, what was your process and how did it work out for you?
There's been a lot of LinkedIn activity. But as well as that, I guess it's just, you can find, you can connect with people so easily nowadays. It's just constant, I guess it's badgering. Typically you send at least 2 emails before you even get a response from some people, because obviously they're super busy themselves. And until you get that opportunity to speak with them on the phone, you can't really sell yourself over an initial email or a message. And that's where it is. We were fortunate enough as well to do a massive freshers fair, like tour in September, where we did like 4 weeks of driving. We covered, I think, like close to 4,000 miles across 20 cities. And fortunately, you meet a lot of brands at those fairs as well. So for us to be able to get intros that way was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely perfect. For you, what do you think are some personality traits from yourself that have really helped you to push forward and actually start a business?
I think I don't mind being told no. I guess you get used to it as well when you're constantly asking people. And as a startup, it's very hard to sell yourself. I think we found when we didn't have many campaigns going live. So when you're trying to get a brand on board, they go, what past stuff have you got? And you're kind of doing a few smaller companies. It's that constant, will come back to us when you've got some better case studies. And until that moment in time, and you kind of sell yourself to a brand that you can then get them on board, and then you can use them as a driving factor for you. So we're fortunate enough to run a small campaign with Domino's.
Oh, wow.
And it was only at Oxford Brookes, but it allowed us to test it out fully as well with such a big brand, and that's really allowed us to excel.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a great company to have on your roster so early doors, right?
Yeah, I guess it's just part luck, to be honest with you. It's fortunate. I was speaking with Brooks at the time, and they had something coming up with them, because obviously Domino's are partnered with the majority of unis around the country, and it allowed us. They wanted to test it, and it was a great tester for me, and it worked well for them. So we're continuing to look at moving forward.
Wow. So what for you would be the number one positive you've taken out of starting a business?
I guess it's the growth in myself. I mean, you learn so much new stuff day to day. It's really hard to kind of pinpoint the exact how I've kind of bettered myself. I mean, I don't think I could have sat here a year ago and think we'd be in a position that I'm able to be hiring 6 people like overall and be able to run a team. I'm only 25, so you're still relatively young with it, and you've got a lot of responsibility running a company and having employees.
Definitely.
Certainly. Obviously the idea of an influencer has sort of grown more and more over the last few years, particularly with certain social media platforms. Marketing's always been about in different ways, but how much of an impact do influencers actually have on products?
I mean, the influencer model has been around for ages, and the whole reason for us using students as micro-influencers, because there's a lot of articles out now which actually highlight how micro-influencers give you better engagement and better results through them, because, as going back to the start, they have a niche audience. So you can really target some like their audience through that, which is a lot, obviously, impressive for brands.
So as an entrepreneur and starting out on this journey, what's something that you have to deal with but you never expected you would have to deal with?
It's a really tough question, that. probably going back to the responsibilities of having to, you've got everything on the line. At this moment in time in particular, there's a lot on the line. You've got other people which can feel the negative results from it if it goes badly.
Yeah.
If you could time travel back before you started this business and teach yourself one skill to go into this business with, what is it you would have gone back and taught yourself?
I mean, I want to do the classic saying, "Oh, I've learned from everything that's happened." I mean, I guess Obviously, I wouldn't necessarily go back and change anything, to be honest, because we've got to where we are at this moment in time, and we're in a really comfortable and happy position. But I guess I've been having a mentality of running before we can walk, and we're going quite aggressive in our tactics of being out there. I think sometimes sit back and look at the bigger picture and think, okay, cool, you don't need to do this. But I guess, yeah, everything we've done so far has got us to where we are, so I can't complain.
Definitely. What's the plan for the next year or so? What's going on at Billa?
I guess the fundamental is growing our team bigger, and that also would involve running a lot more campaigns. Hopefully, we can get some pretty cool brands on board.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat, Josh. I really appreciate it, and I think what you're doing is very cool.
Amazing. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Josh, where can people find you, Bulla, maybe get a part of what you're doing if they want to get involved in this influencer world? Just tell us everywhere where you can plug yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So we're on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. It's at Bula Connect. If you also want to reach out to myself, I'm on LinkedIn as well. It's Joshua Roche, Roche. So any reach out, would happily reply back to you.
Amazing. Thanks, Josh.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.